Hi, it's Sean, Games of Berkeley, coming at you with some new role-playing games that we want to talk to you about. This is kind of exciting. Well, I mean, it always is. It's Games of Berkeley. Everything's exciting here. But this is particularly kind of exciting because we're going to be talking about some new role-playing games. And we're not talking about the mainstay. We're talking about some of the independent press role-playing games. Some of the really, the ideas that are going to push the boundaries of role-playing games. And it's very exciting to do. Today, we're going to talk about Necronomist. Necronomist is a strange trip of a game that takes the players through a bit of existential dread, the power of words, and the power of memories. It's kind of a standard run game where you're going to have your ref and you're going to have your pool of players, typically 1 to 4, uses dice, D6s I believe on my read-through on it. It was a quick read-through. Yeah, it's a very narrative-driven game. You're going to be dealing with kind of the death of everything around you. Again, like I said, it's existential dread. And it's kind of your exploration of that, what that means to you as this entity existing in this world of just loss and death. Very interesting layout in the game. I'm going to take a moment here to show you some pictures of it. So here, what we're talking about, and what we're looking at, is just this diagram of words of power. You'll notice that it uses D66. That's 2 6-sided dice. One red is the tens place, the other's red is the numbers, or is the singles place rather. But you'll see that they're just talking about different words of power. The thing that I wanted to show though was how it's laid out, because it's not a standard table, even though that's exactly what it is. Because if you look at the next page, you know, right back to standard table layout. So what they're also trying to show you is that the way they're presenting it is also its kind of power. And that's really fascinating to me because they're playing with not just the game system, right? But they're playing with how they're showing it to you. So that you as the game master running the game, or you as the player learning the game, is kind of getting directly and deeply into it as you're reading through it. And yeah, there's some wild trips in this thing. So that's Necronomist. I don't know personally a great deal about it because I haven't played it yet, but it absolutely intrigues me. I think it probably will you as well. All right, so staying in the realm of exotic, let's talk thirsty sword lesbians, okay? So, if you're an adventuring party, in an inclusive adventuring party that doesn't necessarily need to just blow everything up, Thirsty Sword Lesbians is absolutely for you. This beautifully presented game takes a party of adventurers and sends them on exciting, exotic adventures as they careen around the universe, the galaxy, around the different dimensions. Because see, Thirsty Sword Lesbians isn't really set in any one particular genre, or it's set in all of them, really kind of depending upon how you want to go about it. Because it's really more the idea of being able to accomplish things by the clashing of your swords, but maybe ending it in a kiss as opposed to a stab through the heart. Thirsty Sword Lesbians. It's really beautifully presented game, and I think is a really wonderful addition to the game shelf. It is powered by the Apocalypse, so it's going to be a move-driven game. Again, it'll operate off of dice, D6s in the case of Powered by the Apocalypse. You're going to wind up having different character types, classes basically, archetypes that each of the players will be able to portray. Each one of them is represented by their different moves that they can do that help really kind of illustrate how that character interacts with the world. And you've got some very exciting character types in here. All right, so yeah, as you'll see here, we've got great representation of character types, and you've got your moves and what the character is capable of doing represented very nicely for you. The game is just gorgeous. I mean, you can pretty much turn to any given section and you're just presented with phenomenal works of art. Great inspirational game. Wonderful stuff. Vibrant, exciting. I can't wait to add it to my collection. Thirsty Sword Lesbians. All right, so the next step we're going to talk about is iHunt. iHunt is a fascinating game of supernatural hunting in the modern day era. It is powered by Fate, so it's going to utilize the standard fudge dice and your adjective ladder and everything else. So, you know, usual things there. One of the things that absolutely appealed to me as a longtime gamer was iHunt's presentation. It kind of comes across a bit like a modern-day textbook in the fact that its charts and things like that are incredibly clear. But it's not sterile. The game also is incredibly vibrant in its utilization of media and color and textures and everything else. So it just kind of pulls you into this incredibly vibrant, intriguing world right away. The artwork inside has got a nice arrangement of inclusive characters and things like that, so I mean, I find it very compelling from those lines. I personally love the Fate system because it's an incredibly narrative gaming system, so from that standpoint, I find it incredibly appealing as well. As with most of the Fate games that I've ever taken a look at, they put story first, so your narrative elements are going to be of primary importance. As I was talking about how it utilizes modern day conveniences with its presentation, you'll also find that it does so when it does it in its adventures as well. Things like text pages for its conversation presentations and things like that. Very fascinating, very fascinating. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about iHunt. All right, well, the next one we're going to talk about here is Heart. Heart, the City Beneath. So Heart is the continuation of Spire, which is a fantasy game, kind of a dark fantasy game, its own system. Heart is, well, Heart takes you into the dungeon beneath the city. It's a game of sacrifice and loss. It's a game of what you will give up in order to achieve. It's a very dark game, a very dark setting, one that will require loss and sacrifice by the party in order to succeed. It is a narrative system, although it is still diced. It uses D10s in this particular case. As I said earlier, it is a continuation of the Spire setting and system. So if you're familiar with that, you should be very familiar with Heart. It's a wonderful, wonderful continuation of the setting itself, keeping in line with its dark themes and its challenging questions that it poses to the players and, well, the ref alike. Fantastic addition to your library as well. All right, next up is Collateral Damage. Collateral Damage is a very interesting game that absolutely has my attention because, well, so the concept is this. The elevator pitch for Collateral Damage would go like this. You take your action movie, whichever one you want to take, your heist movie, whatever, be it Fast and Furious, Die Hard, or whatever other trademark you want to infringe upon at this particular moment. Villains are coming in, things are exploding, all the action is going on around you. You are not playing the heroes. You are playing everyday citizens caught up in the middle of it. Things are going to go really, really wrong, really fast. There's probably going to be a high body count, and not on the bad guy side necessarily. It's called Collateral Damage for a reason. It's a narrative-driven game. It's very tongue-in-cheek. You can see that in the character types. You'll also notice, as I'm showing you this, that it's not bound to any one particular genre. In fact, it sets itself up for any of the genres that action films can normally do. Science fiction, Western, bank heists, whatever. So yeah, you've got a lot of fun, a lot of options to play with when it comes to Collateral Damage, and I absolutely love the idea of being able to play just regular Joe schlubs in a superhero film or whatever else. It's just kind of a fun idea. All right, well, since we're talking about superheroes here, let's go ahead and talk about, well, the rebirth of an old one, but a good one. All right, so Champions, or in this case, Champions Complete. Yeah. Champions has been around for a good long while. Came around in the 80s. It was one of the first, not the first necessarily, but one of the first superhero games, and also one of the first that allowed you to kind of go with all types of superheroes relatively easily at the same table. This is the latest version of Champions, which is why I've included it in our new games. To me, it's kind of important because it was a childhood favorite. It gave me the opportunity to play some wonderful, wonderful childhood favorite superheroes in games that I could not play or in systems that would not support at the time. It also really kind of birthed a new level of creativity in gaming for me and for a lot of players because it kind of exploded the way games were presented at the time. A lot of options. It is a very math-driven game, so, you know, be ready for that when you sit down to play it. But it's a wonderful, wonderful game. Champions complete. Yeah, check it out. So, superheroes. Let's talk about a new one. Sentinels of the Multiverse. This one is a Cortex-driven game. Cortex is, well, it's similar to Fate for those of you that are not necessarily familiar with it, although it utilizes the entire polyhedral die line as opposed to simply sticking with the fudge dice. This is a gorgeous game that presents the rules oftentimes in a very thematically appropriate method. It's a high action game, as most Cortex games are. So you're going to be getting into the midst of excitement right away. It handles social interactions and it handles high action incredibly well. Sentinels is a very thematic comic book style game driven for the 4-color age of comics. So if you're looking to try and do a more gritty, you know, Watchmen style or whatever, it may not immediately lend itself to it, although with like every role-playing game, what you do at the table is just simply adjust the theme appropriately. But what it is destined to set out for from the way Cam Banks and the others designed it is 4-color action, and it delivers that spectacularly well. Great game to add to your shelf as well. All right. Well, that concludes our talk about some of the new games we've got here at Games of Berkeley. Come on in, check them out. We're really excited about having them. I also want to say thank you to our Patreons for enabling this for all of us to enjoy. You should come on in. Check out the games. We'd be happy to see you. Look forward to it. Thanks.